It was just another ordinary day for a teenage girl who had finished her class and was about to take the road back home. But today, she will not return home. The body is broken, fractured bones, skin burned by cigarettes, nails torn out. Junko Furuta no longer has the strength to cry. The four attackers fill the room with laughter and insults. Cigarette butts are extinguished on her arms. Glass bottles become instruments of torture. She is forced to swallow rotten food, drink urine, live under daily beatings without respite. The air in the room is heavy. The smell of dried blood, sweat, remnants of fear and humiliation. Hair torn out, eyes nearly swollen shut, skin riddled with cuts. Around her, dirty walls and the complicit silence of adults who prefer to ignore the noises coming from there. No one asks, no one wants to know. For Junko, the world ends at that door. Mornings and nights no longer exist. There are only sequences of pain and exhaustion, scraps of memory from a life before. She thinks of the times when her only worry was choosing what to study, organizing notebooks, waiting for her mother's dinner. Now each attack is another attempt to erase her will. The attackers laugh while inventing new ways to hurt her. If she does not react, the violence increases. If she reacts, she is punished. Everything has become a perverse game. Sometimes the radio in the house plays in the background, muffling any cry for help. Adults cross the hallway pretending to see nothing. The wounds become infected. Pieces of skin peel off. Hands and feet are broken, useless. Nausea replaces hunger. Fear has become routine. Even breathing hurts. They blame her for everything, repeating the phrase until they convince themselves. At night, sleep has become a risk. No matter the hour, every day has the same face. Yet another endless cycle of terror. Every object in the house can turn into a weapon. She prays while being kicked. She thinks of her brothers, of the smell of rice from childhood. She struggles to recall any sign of normality. Whenever hope lights up, it is crushed again. The body continues to be destroyed, but she clings to the memory of who she was. She stays alive as long as she can, even when reality seems intent on erasing her. Outside, Japan goes on. Families live their routines. Schools open early. Lives continue unaware of the abyss hidden behind an ordinary wall. Junko Furuta, little by little, learns to survive only from her memories. From within the worst horror, she feels no one will save her. Junko Furuta was born on January 18, 1971, in Misato, Saitama, Japan. From a young age, she learned the value of work and discipline, helping her mother with simple tasks, caring for her siblings, always the daughter who never caused trouble. Her father worked long hours to support the family. Her mother was dedicated and demanding. Junko understood early on that the only path was to study, be correct and independent. Her room was tidy, her belongings discreet, her life without controversy. Those who knew her closely knew her kindness was genuine. She helped classmates without asking for anything in return. She was the first to wake up early to study for exams. She rarely missed school. Teachers praised her for respect and commitment. She had a small circle of true friends, with whom she shared dreams of college entrance exams, photos in the park, plans for the future. At 17, Junko was in her last year of high school at Yashio Minami High School. Since October 1988, she had been working at a plastic molding factory. She saved her money carefully, like a child, for a graduation trip planned months earlier. She had also already attended interviews for a new job at an electronics store, determined to ease her father's burden. Beyond discipline, Junko was a dreamer. Friends remembered that one of her wishes was to become an idol singer, to participate in music festivals. Even though she was shy, she found it beautiful to dream big sometimes. She was not a popular girl, but she was cherished, the one who listened, who gave advice, who defended weaker classmates from bullies. Everyone agreed it was hard to imagine someone more innocent in that neighborhood. On the other side of town, Hiroshi Miyano represented everything Junko despised: early violence, the need for domination, a reputation for being dangerous. He grew up admiring brute strength, abandoned school discipline early. He was arrogant, impulsive, known for hanging out with yakuza groups, seeking fights, committing petty crimes every week. At his side were three partners: Joe Ogura, the most sadistic and cruel of the group; Shinji Minato, owner of the house that became the prison, timid in the streets but ruthless among accomplices; Yasushi Watanabe, the quietest, always ready to obey. They all dropped out of high school in the summer of 1988 and dove into a routine of crime: robberies, thefts, assaults, rapes. The families of the four boys intervened little. They avoided them or feared confronting them. The neighborhood knew. Shopkeepers avoided conflict. The school no longer listed them among those who could be saved. It was common to see them together, riding motorcycles at night, always ready to start start fights. In November 1988, Miyano and Minato prowled the streets in search of victims. They had just committed a gang rape days before and were accustomed to impunity. That night, Junko was returning home from work at the factory. Minato, under pressure from the group, kicked her off her bicycle and fled. Miyano appeared as a good Samaritan, offered help, but instead took her to a warehouse and then to a hotel, threatening her with Yakuza stories, saying he would kill her family if she resisted. Junko was raped. Ogura soon instructed that she must not be released. In the following hours, they all took part in her definitive abduction. In the days that followed, Junko was taken to Minato's house, locked in a room on the second floor. Within the thin walls of that house, Junko began 44 days of torture. Minato's parents rarely went upstairs, and when they did, they pretended not to see, afraid of their own son. Neighbors even heard moans but chose to ignore them. Others thought it was just teenage mischief. To mislead Junko's family, the boys forced her to call home, saying she was safe, that she had run away, but was alive by her own will. Within days, the house became the center of a sadistic spectacle. The four, and occasionally two other accomplices, brought friends to watch the show. The violence escalated gradually. Miyano shaved Junko's hair, burned her genitals with matches, forced her to dance naked to humiliate herself. They got her drunk and forced her to eat rotten food. The objects used ranged from bottles to iron bars. They deprived her of sleep, stubbed cigarettes out on her body. Each escape attempt resulted in more beatings, more torture. Outside, nothing changed. School, businesses, everyday life continued indifferent. Little by little, Junko stopped walking, sitting, speaking loudly. Her wounds became infected. The smell repelled even her aggressors. Her appearance changed completely. Swollen face, deformed hands, open burns. Childhood friends asked about her at school. No one answered. Time was measured only in assaults. The only pauses came when the boys went out to commit other crimes. No one intervened. Japan of that era, secure in statistics and rigid in tradition, witnessed without seeing the greatest violence ever committed against a teenager in the post-war period. The days turned into weeks. Inside the suffocating room, Junko Furuta was stripped of any vestige of a normal life. Each morning was identical to the last, waking up in pain, feeding on filthy scraps, enduring insults, threats, and humiliations of every kind. Her weakened body no longer responded. Open wounds, burns, old and new bruises covered her arms and legs. The boys, sometimes alone, sometimes with guests, tested how far they could go without any reaction from the outside world. The torture followed a cruel script. Miyano shaved Junko's head and eyebrows, laughed, threw lit matches onto her skin. Forced to undress, she was made to dance, simulate pleasure, submit to all kinds of humiliation under the yellowish light of the room. As punishment for an escape attempt, they burned her with lighters and poured boiling water over her legs. Iron bars, bottles, sharp objects, everything was an excuse for a new type of pain. Food and water deprivation turned her resistance into apathy. Nausea replaced what hunger remained. The girl who once dreamed of the future now only awaited the moment to stop feeling. In the absence of food, the attackers forced her to eat cockroaches, drink her own urine, ingest absurd amounts of alcohol or milk, alternating physical and mental torture. There was no chance of respite. If she cried, she was beaten. If she tried to remain silent, she was insulted. Her thin body deformed day by day. Bruises painted purple stains from her neck to her toes, nails torn out, eyes swollen. Infected, with no access to treatment, Junko lost mobility. She urinated and defecated there in the room, as she was no longer able to go downstairs to the bathroom. The smell began to bother even her aggressors. Still, nothing changed. Whoever entered that house was compelled either to participate or to passively watch the spectacle of destruction. At each attempt to ask for help, Junko was forced to call her mother and pretend she was safe. At first, Minato's parents still questioned what was happening, but upon realizing their son's escalating violence, they chose to ignore it and protect themselves. The silence of the walls, the neighbors, and the authorities was complicit. Even when there were reports of screams and strange situations, no one acted. By the end of December, Junko's health collapsed. Malnourished, covered in wounds and burns, she could no longer keep her eyes open. Weakness, anemia, infection set in. Her appearance was unrecognizable. Friends would never have suspected that the cheerful Junko was beaten with an iron ball thrown at her abdomen, struck for hours. Flammable liquid was poured on her body. She tried for the last time to put out the flames, but her movements no longer existed. After 2 months of martyrdom, the life of the student ended without true witnesses, only under the audience of her own attackers. Outside, the police would only suspect Junko's whereabouts after one of the criminal's confessions. Days after the murder, her body, placed in a metal drum filled with concrete, would be discovered months later, only thanks to a mistake of trust Miyano made with the police. It was too late. The whole of Japan would learn through headlines the cost of collective silence and indifference to another's suffering. suffering. The day after the murder, the four criminals disposed of Junko Furuta's body with the same coldness as discarding trivial evidence. The corpse was placed in a metal drum filled with concrete and abandoned in a vacant lot, far from any curious eyes. The house that had served as her prison soon returned to its routine, as if nothing had happened. Minato's parents never faced charges as accomplices. For the neighborhood, only rumors and an uncomfortable silence remained. The police only came close to solving the case months later, while investigating another sexual crime. During interrogation, Miyano, convinced that his accomplice had confessed, ended up revealing the location of the body. The drum was discovered on March 29, 1989. Junko's identity was confirmed only through fingerprints. Japan was then confronted with details of horror rarely seen in its modern history. More than 40 days of suffering, calculated cruelty, and the general failure of everyone around to save a life. The trial attempted to protect the anonymity of those involved, but journalists decided to publish the names of the four. Society demanded justice, exemplary sentences. However, since they were underage at the time of the crime, the sentences ranged from 5 to 20 years in prison. None of those responsible would be held accountable for the full extent of the suffering caused. Miyano received the longest sentence but was released in 2009. Once out of prison, he continued to accumulate accusations and live on the fringes of crime. For Junko's family, only mourning and silent tributes remained. At her funeral, classmates and friends left letters and promises of change. Her diploma was awarded posthumously amid the tears of everyone who had known her. The cruelty of the case sparked a wave of outrage. Thousands of letters, protests against juvenile protection laws, criticism of institutional apathy, and mobilization for harsher sentences for crimes of such violence. Decades after the crime, the name of Junko Furuta remains a symbol of what is most tragic in social failures: silence, fear, and indifference. Her story crosses generations, always reminding Japan and the world that no country, culture, or era is safe when society chooses to turn its face away from the suffering of an innocent. The terror endured by Junko remains a silent plea for justice, humanity, and vigilance, so that no other victim may be silenced in the same way.